You find it in a place where it should never have been, wedged between forgotten books, its edges curling, its surface cracked as though it had weathered centuries. A photograph. Your photograph. Yet the image stares back at you, older, worn, almost hollowed, as if someone had stolen years from your future and printed them onto fragile paper. You study it in silence, waiting for a trick to reveal itself, for a smear of ink or a shadow of coincidence. But the longer you look, the more undeniable it becomes. This is you, and yet it is not. This face carries the weight of choices you have not yet made, betrayals you have not yet committed, and a sorrow that feels both foreign and intimate. You trace the cracks with your fingers, and the texture of the paper feels wrong. Coarse, heavy, like the skin of something once alive. It is not a modern print. The ink bleeds into its veins as if it had grown there, as if the image was not taken, but summoned. You notice details that should be impossible, faint symbols etched in the background, half erased by the passage of time, the faint impression of a door at your shoulder, its outline sharp yet hazy, like memory itself. Whoever placed this in your path knew exactly what it would do to you. This was not left behind. It was delivered. The air feels different now, heavier, as if unseen eyes are adjusting their gaze toward you. You remember every story you dismissed, every whispered warning about those who collect fragments of souls, binding them into objects that outlive flesh, and still you cannot look away. The photograph demands your attention, pulling you into its silence, erasing the comfort of ordinary explanations. You feel a pressure in your chest, the kind that signals danger or destiny. There is no in between. You try to laugh at the absurdity, but the sound collapses into the walls, small and brittle, unworthy of the weight pressing against you. Somewhere deep in your mind, a voice stirs. It does not speak words, only intention. They have found you. The thought chills you more than the image itself, because you know it did not come from you. For the first time, you sense that your life has never been entirely yours, that somewhere, perhaps long before your birth, your existence was recorded, tracked, anticipated. The photograph is not evidence, it is confirmation. You think of time in fragments now, before and after. Before, when you believed every mirror reflected only the present moment. After, when you know reflections can be planted, altered, manipulated by hands that never needed permission. The photograph is not a keepsake. It is a weapon. Someone has placed your life into a narrative you cannot yet read, and by touching it, by recognizing yourself in it, you have already agreed to play your role. The room feels colder, though no window is open. The silence thickens. Every instinct tells you to destroy it, to tear the paper apart and scatter its pieces where no one will find them. But your hands refuse. Some part of you already understands this photograph will not let you go. It has been waiting patiently for you to see it. And now that you have, the next movement has already been set in motion. You walk streets that were never meant to be walked at night. The air tastes of rust, as though the city itself is bleeding. Each step feels too loud, too heavy, as if something beneath the pavement listens for you, waiting for the rhythm of your footsteps to reveal your presence. You carry the photograph pressed against your palm, and though it is nothing but paper, it burns with the weight of a relic. It does not belong in this time, and you know that by holding it, neither do you. You move past familiar lights, past the safe places where voices echo with laughter, and into corridors where silence reigns. There, windows are boarded, doors are chained, and symbols, crudely painted in ash and charcoal, stare back at you from brick walls. They mean nothing and everything at once, fragments of a language you almost recognize but cannot fully translate. You sense betrayal in the way the city hides its forgotten chambers. By day, it showed you comfort, but here in the hollowed out veins of its body, it strips away the disguise and reveals only what has been rotting underneath. The air grows heavier, not colder, but dense, as though thickened with whispers you cannot hear directly, only feel along your spine. Someone is watching, not from the rooftops, not from the shadows behind you. Something older, something woven into the ground itself. Your pulse becomes louder, and suddenly the photograph in your hand feels like a beacon. You realize the paper is not a picture of you at all. It is a mirror held up to something else, a copy of what has already been marked. Shamans, keepers, silent watchers. Each step you take seems to summon them. Their eyes are on you, though none are here. Lanterns glow in narrow alleys where no one dares live. The flames do not flicker, they burn with a stillness that feels unnatural, like they guard a ritual you were never invited to. In the smoke rising from broken incense bowls, faces appear and vanish, as though every passerby who ever looked at this picture lingers, trapped, offering silent testimony. You try not to look too long. You fear if you do, their faces will merge into yours and you will forget which reflection is truly yours. A gate stands ahead, rusted, chained but unlocked, as if whoever closed it wanted it to be opened only by you. Beyond it you sense not a place, but a shift, a border where logic dissolves and meaning begins to fracture. You feel powerless at the threshold, yet you cannot stop moving. Powerlessness itself becomes a kind of power when you realize surrender is the only weapon you have left. You pass through. The streets behind you vanish, swallowed into darkness as though erased from existence. Ahead lies only the forgotten, cracked statues without faces, stairways descending into nowhere, walls lined with symbols that pulse faintly like veins. You grip the photograph tighter, aware now that it is not guiding you. It is leading you back to something that has always been expecting you. And though you cannot hear their words, you feel the shamans whisper in unison, each syllable like an echo before the storm. You sit in the dim silence, the air dense with smoke that tastes of ash and forgotten prayers. The shaman before you does not see with his eyes. They are white, clouded, swallowed by time. His fingers are thin, trembling as they reach for the photograph you've carried like a curse. When he touches it, the atmosphere shifts, the air hardens, the candlelight bends, and for the first time since you entered, you feel watched by something far older than the man in front of you. His lips quiver, not from age, but from recognition, as if he's brushed against a wound he prayed never to reopen. His chest rises sharply, and then he exhales a sound you cannot name. Half gasp, half growl. He clutches the photo and recoils as though it seared his skin, yet he cannot release it. The tattoos on his arms glisten with sweat, and you swear they writhe like snakes trying to flee the surface of his body. He speaks not to you, but to the space around you, whispering to entities unseen, bargaining, pleading. You catch fragments marked, chosen, watched. Words too ancient to fully grasp, yet your blood reacts as if it has always known them. The sound is fractured, urgent, like someone reading from a secret file that was never meant to be spoken aloud. Then his focus snaps to you, and the blind eyes feel sharper than any sighted gaze you've ever endured. They already know, he whispers, voice shaking as though it carries weight beyond his own throat. The moment this picture was taken, the path sealed itself. You were not supposed to see this, yet here you are. A name written before your birth, a shadow trailing before you could walk. The words cut into you with surgical precision, both terrifying and clarifying. You realize this is not about fate, it is about a design, and you are inside it. The shaman leans closer. His breath carries the scent of herbs and rot, the perfume of decay and survival. He tells you that photographs are not just images. They are traps, mirrors fixed in time anchoring pieces of the soul that cannot fight back. When your likeness is taken, he says, it is not you they capture, it is the opening. He explains that your picture is not merely paper and ink, it is a contract, a marker, proof that you have been recognized by something that watches from behind the veil. Something that only reveals itself when summoned, and you, without knowing, summoned it. His words tremble into silence. His hand returns the photograph to you, but his touch lingers as though reluctant to release you back into the ordinary. You cannot change the path, he breathes, almost inaudible, but you can prepare. The door they warn of is not made of wood or stone. It is choice, and when you stand before it, hesitation will be the blade pressed against your throat. His face hardens. For the first time, he does not appear as a man broken by visions, but as a sentinel burdened with forbidden knowledge. Then he turns away. No farewell, no blessing. His body shakes like a man carrying too much fire inside him. You are left holding the photograph, heavier now than iron, pulsing faintly with heat, as if aware that it has been recognized. And in that silence, you know this was only the first voice, and yet it already sounds like a verdict. You carry the photograph like a burden, a quiet weight that bends the air around you. The first shaman's trembling silence should have been enough, but something in you refuses stillness. You search for others, certain that not all will be so afraid. Yet wherever you go, across streets thick with incense, into rooms suffocating with smoke, through markets where strangers avoid your eyes, the reaction is always the same. A hand touching the picture, a moment of breathless stillness, and then the recoil, the same fear, the same collapse into whispers, as if every one of them had already seen it long before you arrived. Their words do not change. Different mouths, different dialects, different lands, but the same phrase claws its way through their lips as if spoken by something older than their tongues. Do not go near the door. You hear it once and it unsettles. You hear it twice and it gnaws at your bones. By the third, fourth, fifth time, the repetition becomes unbearable, not because it confuses you, but because it confirms something you do not want confirmed. They are not warning you. They are pronouncing a sentence already carved into your life. Some shaman weeps violently, clawing at his chest as though his heart were being crushed in unseen hands. Another covers her face, refusing to look at you again, muttering prayers not meant for human ears. One slams his head against stone, whispering through bloodied lips the same dreaded line. None explain, none elaborate, none tell you what waits behind that door. They simply beg you, with eyes wide as though staring into the grave, to turn away, yet with every repetition you feel less afraid and more marked. Like the warning isn't meant to protect you but to remind you that you belong to it. The phrase follows you. It echoes in alleyways. It trembles in the silence after midnight. Even when no one is speaking, you hear it circling your skull. Do not go near the door. It's no longer advice. It's a command. And with every command, there rises in you the poisonous hunger to defy it. Because when everyone insists on silence, your mind starts to wonder what kind of power they are trying to cage. You begin to notice the pattern. Their eyes never look directly at the photograph. They look through it, as if the image opens onto something else. Their bodies flinch not from the paper, but from the shadow stretching behind it, as though in the lines of your face something ancient stirs. The photograph has become a mirror none dare hold, a mirror that reflects not who you are, but what you are becoming, the more they warn you, the more the words feel less like prophecy and more like betrayal. If they all knew, why did they never come to you before? Why did they wait until you held the picture, until the path was already carved, until you could no longer turn back? You realize then, the chorus of warnings is not meant to save you. It is meant to break you, to fracture you beneath the weight of inevitability, to strip you of choice until obedience feels like survival. But you do not bow, you cannot, because within the terror of their whispers lies the faintest pulse of something else. A resonance, like a key striking against the bars of a locked gate. And you feel it with every warning, with every trembling voice. The door is not just a danger. It is an inheritance, and no warning, no chorus, no trembling shaman can erase the pull you now feel burning through your blood. At first it was nothing more than a shadow, a faint outline hovering at the farthest corner of your sleep, as if your mind was testing how much unease it could carry before you noticed. You brushed it off, dismissed it as noise in the chaos of dreams. But every night it returned, sharper, darker, demanding to be seen. The door. It stood alone, tall and silent, its surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it, engraved with symbols that breathed like wounds. You had never studied such marks, yet a part of you recognized them instantly, as if your blood carried their memory. The first time you touched its surface, only in dream, you awoke trembling. Cold sweat clung to your skin, and the echo of whispers lingered in your ears. They did not speak in words you could translate, but their meaning cut through language. You are being summoned. That truth gnawed at you throughout the day. Every glance in the mirror carried an aftertaste of the door's presence, as if your reflection had been dipped in its shadow. Ordinary moments, washing your hands, unlocking your phone, walking past a stranger, suddenly became charged with the sense of an audience you could not see. With each passing night, the door grew nearer, no longer distant, no longer content with standing quietly. You saw it under storms, in ruined landscapes, on streets from your own childhood. Always the same blackened wood, symbols glowing faintly like embers, a frame too tall for any architecture you knew, and the whispers were growing bolder. At first they chanted from the other side, muffled, cautious. But now they pressed against the threshold, calling your name with voices you almost recognized. Friends who had betrayed you, enemies you had buried, lovers who had turned away. They all spoke in unison, as if borrowed by something that needed your attention. There was no safety in waking. When your eyes opened, the images bled into reality. Cracks in your walls resembled its markings. The hum of power lines echoed its vibration. Once, in the stillness of early morning, you swore you heard the creak of hinges in your hallway, though no doors had moved. You told yourself it was impossible, but a deeper part of you knew. The barrier between dream and waking had thinned. The door was no longer content to remain a phantom. It wanted to cross. Doubt fought against desire. Fear reminded you of the shaman's trembling voices, their warnings stitched with terror. Yet beneath that fear was hunger. The door was not only a threat, it was a promise. Behind it waited knowledge unspoken, power untamed, a glimpse into the machinery behind existence itself. And though you repeated to yourself that you would resist, your hands betrayed you every night. Each dream ended the same way, you standing closer, your fingers hovering inches from the surface, the whispers now clear enough to pierce your bones. The door is not asking anymore. It is waiting. It knows you will answer. It always knew. You know the warnings were clear. Every shaman recoiled. Every whisper carried the same dreadful echo. And yet, when you close your eyes, the pull grows stronger. The door does not beg. It waits. It tempts with silence, and in that silence you feel a hunger greater than fear. You tell yourself you only want to understand, but beneath that thought lies the truthy. You want to see what no one else dares to see. That hunger is the betrayal of your own safety, and the betrayal feels sweeter than obedience ever could. The photograph in your hand no longer feels like paper. It feels alive, pulsing faintly like a vein cut out of time. You hold it and sense the contract it represents, an old agreement signed long before you learned how to speak. You were chosen, not in the way heroes are chosen, but as prey is chosen by predators who want it fattened, trembling, prepared. The shamans tried to warn you, but even their voices trembled in reverence of the thing behind the door. They knew you would reach this point anyway. Warnings are powerless against desire, and now you feel it. That fracture between who you were and who you are becoming. You used to measure your worth by survival, by staying safe in a world that never truly noticed you. But now safety feels like suffocation. Now silence feels like death. Knowledge calls like a blade calls to its sheath. You think of betrayal again, betrayal of fear, betrayal of every trembling ancestor who looked away from doors like this. Perhaps you are not betraying yourself at all. Perhaps you are betraying them. The ones who chose blindness, who chose chains instead of revelation. The symbols carved into the door whisper to you even before you touch them. They are not letters, not language. They are instructions. You do not know how you understand, but you do. They speak of thresholds, of blood, of a darkness that does not consume but awakens. You realize with terror and with thrill that the shamans were never warning you to stay away from the door. They were warning you of yourself. Because once you are near it, you will not walk away. Once you feel its weight pressing against your chest, you will either break beneath it or let it carve you into something unrecognizable. Your inner voice splinters into two. One pleads for restraint, whispering that curiosity is a noose. The other insists that ignorance is already a coffin. You stand between them, a battlefield inside your own skull. And you know this is what the shamans feared most. Not the door, not the darkness, but the moment when you would realize that the warnings were not chains, but invitations. That every trembling word they spoke was part of the ritual. That every time they whispered, "Do not go near the door," what they meant was you will not resist it. The temptation is not just to see, it is to become. And as you breathe, you feel the old self already peeling away like dead skin, leaving something sharper, something hungrier, something prepared to open what should never have been touched. The air is colder here, though no wind moves. The ground beneath you vibrates like a heartbeat, slow and patient, as though the earth itself is alive and waiting. The door rises before you, impossibly tall, its surface slick like obsidian, yet etched with scars that shimmer in shifting patterns, as if remembering every hand that ever touched it. You feel the shaman's warnings pressing against your skull, echoing in fragments. Do not go near. But the silence around you is stronger than their voices. Silence so dense it becomes a sound of its own, louder than screams. You place your palm against the surface, and it's not cold, it's warm, warm like skin. Your thoughts begin to fracture. At first, you believe you're standing alone. Then, in the shifting reflection of the black surface, you notice yourself multiplied, countless versions of you peering back, each one with eyes slightly altered, some filled with terror, others with hunger, one with nothing at all. They do not blink in unison. You are no longer sure which of them is truly you, and yet the pull is irresistible, as though the door is reading you, weighing your worth, deciding if you are prey or participant. The air becomes thin. Breathing feels like a bargain. You think of the warnings, every whisper, every trembling voice, every refusal to explain. Their fear was not of death. It was of what survives beyond death. You realized too late that the shamans were not protecting you from the door. They were protecting the door from you, because if you choose to open it, their chants, their circles, their fragile barriers of ritual will no longer hold. They feared what would happen if your hunger aligned with what waits behind. The handle is not visible, yet you know where it is. Your fingers find grooves carved deep into the surface, a pattern older than language. Each line burns as you trace it, branding your skin with shapes you cannot forget. The symbols pulse, alive, feeding on hesitation, feeding on choice. You feel betrayal rise within you, not toward them, but toward yourself. For all your fear, you cannot resist. For all your warnings, you were always coming here. The door shudders beneath your touch. The reflections of yourself scream without sound, mouths stretched open in silence, as though begging you to stop. But the one reflection you cannot look away from, the one in the center, smiles. A broken, knowing smile. It is not a warning. It is recognition. You push. Not with force, but with surrender. The surface caves inward and a sound erupts, low at first, then roaring, a chorus of 1,000 unseen voices. Not words. Hunger. The world bends, light fractures, time folds. You feel yourself hollowing, ribs rattling as something steps into you, not from outside, but from beneath your own shadow. You stagger forward and realize the door was never meant to be entered. It was meant to enter you. Behind you, the world has gone quiet again, but the silence is different now. It listens, it waits, and in the space where your fear once lived, there is only a dark, endless certainty. What you let in will never let go. The moment your hand pulls the door open, the world collapses into a silence so complete it feels like a sound itself. Your lungs tighten. Time suspends. What stands beyond is not a place, but a presence vast and without shape, yet intimate enough to breathe directly into your thoughts. It does not ask permission. It does not wait. It enters. And in that instant, you understand why every shaman recoiled, why their eyes turned cold and their voices dropped to a whisper. They weren't warning you of death. They were warning you of permanence. The air presses down as if the atmosphere itself bends under unseen weight. You feel your own body shift, subtle at first, then undeniable. Your shadow lengthens across the floor, bending against the light as though no longer bound by your movements. Your face burns with an invisible brand, and when you blink, you sense that someone, or something, blinks with you. You are no longer singular. The room recognizes it before you do. Walls groan, the ground hums, and the very air trembles with an awareness that you are not who you were moments ago. Their voices rise in the distance, those shamans who saw what you could not. Not physically present, yet their cries rip through your skull, a chorus of terror echoing the same line, the line that now reveals its meaning with merciless clarity. What you let in will never let go. Their prophecy was never about avoidance. It was about the inevitability of contamination. You opened the door, and now the door has opened you. Thoughts no longer feel private. Whispers thread through the edges of your mind, suggesting truths you never considered, strategies too dangerous to resist. The temptation of absolute knowledge surges like fire in your veins, promising control, dominance, survival beyond weakness. But it comes at a cost. Each thought feels heavier, as though owned by another, as though borrowed. You do not know where you end and it begins. Power feels intoxicating until you realize it is not given. It is loan, and every loan demands repayment. You search the photograph again, the one that began this descent. Its surface shifts alive, showing not your reflection, but a stranger with your eyes. That face stares back with a knowing smile, as if mocking your late understanding. This was never about the picture. It was about recognition. Something ancient recognized you before you recognized yourself. You were never chosen. You were marked. The shaman's warnings were futile because the path was sealed long ago. The whispers that flow through you now do not sound foreign anymore. They sound familiar, almost like memories you had buried, waiting for the right moment to rise. And that is the most terrifying revelation of all. Perhaps this presence did not invade you. Perhaps it was always you, locked away behind the door, waiting for the day you would be desperate enough to turn the handle. You stand in the silence, aware that the shaman still weeps somewhere far beyond reach, powerless to stop what has already taken root. The truth settles deep into your bones. There is no reversal, no forgetting. What you have let in is not leaving. It waits, it watches, it whispers, and every breath you take now feels less like yours and more like its continuation.